How you doing, folks? You're watching Onward with Onrie Live. I'm your host, Henry Kompan, and this week we're going to be talking about something very special and something very important to me, and something that I think is very important to all of you, which is why I'm looking forward to seeing how many of you are going to be tuning in today. We're going to be talking about convention display strategies and setting up for Comic-Con. So, as I've mentioned earlier in the week, next week I'm going to be starting, my convention season kicks off. And I've been kind of taking the last 3 months to work on my strategy in various areas. And one of the things that I needed to work on was my presentation, because this year I have a lot more product out there. So with new product means I have to showcase more, but what unfortunately happens is that I don't get more selling space. So typically when you are set up in an artist alley, you're given approximately the amount of space that you see here. And there are a lot of variables that are beyond your control when you go to Comic-Con. Like, for example, location. I had a gentleman ask about this a day ago, Colin. So Colin, you asked me to talk about location. I'll kick it off with that. So the thing about location is you never really get a chance to decide where you're going to be at a convention. You can request to be in a certain space, like you can request to be on an end cap. In some cases, there are shows that will let you pay a little more for an end cap. And depending on whether you're an artist alley or an exhibitor, you don't really have much of a say of where it goes. And it used to be that money talked, but now, as these conventions are growing, the convention staff really want to make sure that the people who are attending these shows are people that should be there, so that they don't get people who shouldn't be. Like, for example, people who are ripping off other artists and selling the work as their own. So they're trying to eliminate that by kind of screening different creators and seeing if they actually deserve to be at Comic-Con. So bottom line is, depending on how much money you spend, that's going to help determine what location you get. But most cases, in the last 7 years that I've been doing this, I have never had any say on where I've been put at a convention. Not once, even when I paid more. They put me where they put me, and that's fine. They can put me by the bathroom. They can put me by the exit. I don't give a shit. Because once I set up shop, I'm going to do what I do best. And as long as there's people coming, that's all that matters to me. If there's not people coming, and I'll tell you a story about a situation where that actually occurred. And I learned a very valuable lesson that has helped me tremendously ever since. So basically, let's rewind back to 2014. I decided to leave for the 4th of July weekend to Florida SuperCon. And I had done some research on the show, but I had never actually been to the show before. And I had expectations that I could sell a set amount of books over there, and that there would be a ton of people coming, because it's 4th of July weekend. Who wouldn't want to go to Comic-Con on 4th of July weekend? Well, it turned out that that show was pretty dead. And they had me stationed not even at the end of an aisle, but up against the wall. So I was at the end of an aisle up against the wall. There was no one who was going to walk all the way back to my area. I had brought 800 books with me. There was no way in hell I was going to sell all of those books. I was so frustrated after the first day that I left the convention, and there was like 4 hours left. I had never done that before at a convention. I was so disappointed. I was heartbroken. I had spent all this money to ship books, to book a hotel, to get out to Miami to do this convention, and there was no way I was going to sell through everything. So I went back to my hotel, really, really frustrated. I called up the airline and I said, how much is it going to be for me to change my tickets and bring back my product? If I just check in like 2 oversized boxes. And it turned out that just to ship the boxes back, it would cost $300, plus whatever I would have to pay to change my tickets. Now I was stuck in fucking Miami for 4th of July weekend, away from my family, away from everything, at a shitty show. Okay, and no offense to anybody who's done SuperCon and loved it, and no offense to the convention staff. I made it work for me, and I really appreciate it. But that was my attitude at that moment. I was like, this is a fucking shitty show. What am I going to fucking do here? So I took the night, to kind of contemplate what my strategy was going to be. I was like, all right, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging. I'm going to sell as many fucking books as I can so that, you know, when I fly back to Chicago, I have as little of a load as possible. So the next day I go to the show, and I literally just, I bear through the whole thing. But there was maybe about 60 people that entered the convention floor total for Friday. And I don't know what Florida SuperCon has changed since, and I know that some people had a better show than others, but in Artist Alley, what was happening was all the other artists were feeling it too. And there were people who were throwing up their tables and packing up their shit and leaving. People were getting angry, and the staff was trying to address this problem. And they did a good job for what they could. And everybody was just bearing for Saturday. I mean, honestly, I don't know why they made it a 4-day show. Maybe they've learned something since, or maybe they've shifted things around. But at that time, it was really hard to be going through. So, and I was in a shitty location. And at that point, I actually could have moved to a different place, but I realized, what's the point of moving? It doesn't matter where I am now. I'm still in, you know, it sucks. Where my location is terrible. And so Saturday rolls around. And now there's some people coming. And I realize that they're all walking. The end of the aisle is maybe about, you know, at least like 3 or 4, you know, well, it's just, you know, a couple feet, or not a couple feet, like a yard away from where I am. Okay? And I needed to basically haul ass to that yard, or haul ass, bring people back to my table and try and sell them. Now, if I'm picking people out of a line, and everybody down my aisle sees that I'm picking people over there, they're going to think I'm stealing their sales from them. But that's what I had to do. I had to actually get out in front of my table. I had to go out there, and I had to bring people back to me. It's not an ideal situation, but that's what I had to do. Now, because I had to do this, I had to actually be mindful of my neighbors, because I didn't want them to think I was stealing sales from them. I just wanted to move product, just like they did. But no one was going to go out there and try and direct traffic in our direction, because no one would have come by our area if I hadn't done something. So once I brought people back to my area and I could close them, if I was able to make a sale, then I would bring that sale over to my neighbor. And I kept doing the same thing until eventually what I noticed was traffic was naturally coming in our direction, because people just saw, like, hey, what's going on down there? And when you're going into a convention, you're basically just looking forward. And especially when it's packed, you just can't, you know, you can't pay attention. You have to, like, jump out into the end of the aisle anymore. Believe me, I didn't. I'm a big guy. I don't like moving around much. All right? So my point is this. Location doesn't matter. What matters when you're doing a convention is that this and this are working 100%. If you're thinking about how to bring people to you, you're already a step ahead of the game. If you're thinking with your heart, you're thinking about everybody else around you. It's not about me, it's about we, right? You make the sale by making a customer feel comfortable about spending their money with you. From there, if you can, help your neighbors. It's the least you can do, especially if they're having a hard show, especially if it's their first show. Help them out. Give them a sale. Give them some confidence to get out there and push. Because I'll tell you what, if your neighbor's doing well, you're going to do even better. Unless someone is out there stealing sales from you, you're going to do just fine. So it doesn't matter where you're located. Don't let that be an excuse for why you're doing bad at a show. It's not the excuse. All right? Sometimes it can't be helped where you're put at a show, but you have to make it work for you. And that's what I've done for the last 7 years, and I've sold out at over 60 conventions, and I'm going to continue that streak because I don't have any other choice. This is the only way I can move product. Now let me tell you a little bit about how I set up how I changed my setup differently for this season. So basically, I'm going to lift up my laptop so you guys can just get a quick look at everything. Actually, maybe I'll do it a little bit different. Well, yeah, I'll do that. So you guys can just get a quick sense of how I set up everything. So as you guys can see, right here, I got both graphic novels showcased. And normally, where you see that acrylic display, I'm going to be replacing that acrylic display with a digital display that just shows that forward. I think that when you have acrylic displays, they break very easily, And people like digital stuff. They're typically drawn to it. I don't know what it is, but it just brings people by. And this black space over here would normally be my laptop, but I'm using my laptop right now to broadcast. So typically I have my laptop here, and people will input their email addresses here. And then I have my the first 4 issues of Y here, and I'll explain why they're set up like this in a moment. Next to that, I have Fallen Avenger 1, 2, 3, and 4 over here. And next to that, I now have Marks. And normally I'm not going to keep this many copies of Marks on the table. I think that's overcrowding the table. I'll probably take some books off, and I'm going to have some posters over here, because when you buy Marks, you get a free poster with it. That's sort of my incentive to get people to pick up the book. And the posters look badass. They were drawn by Dan Doherty, and I forgot them at home, so that's why I couldn't show them to you now. But if you scroll on my Facebook page, you should be able to find it. Next to that, I have T-shirts, and that's pretty much my setup for conventions. So going back to why do I have issues 1 through 4, sprawled up sideways, but everything else is facing front? The reason is because when I'm in front of my table, I'm already pushing 1 through 4. This is like, allowing me to move through. Stacking these books up here is allowing me to grab copies as soon as I sell them quickly. So as soon as I make a sale, I want to move on to the next book, and I don't want to have to go digging through stuff. The chances of people buying Fallen Avenger 1, 2, 3, and 4, are not as high after they say yes to Warrior and Defender. So I'll walk you through what the typical sale is. So first, what I do is I offer people a bookmark, because I start off with a question that people can't say no to. Do you want a free bookmark? Most people are going to say yes. People love free shit, right? Bookmark's a great thing to give away for free. I have plenty of information about my book, so even if you can't buy it, you can take the bookmark and walk home and debate about whether you want to buy it later. After I offer you a bookmark, I give you my spiel. My spiel is 30 seconds, right? I don't want people spending too much time at my table because they have other things they want to see. I'm popping out. I'm drawing attention from other, neighbors and stuff like that. I want to keep things moving so that they can make sales too. So as soon as I pitch someone, and they say that, let's just say someone says yes, they want to buy issues 1 through 4. Well, now I want to tell them about the graphic novel. And I honestly, a lot of people think like my goal is to upsell everybody, and I'm not going to lie, I do make more money if you buy a graphic novel as opposed to a single issue. That's why the price is different. But the bottom line is, my objective as a salesman is to make sure that you walk away from my table happy with what you bought. I don't give a shit if you bought 1 comic or all 8 comics, a graphic novel or 2 graphic novels. It doesn't matter. The point is that you walk out of here feeling happy, even if you didn't buy anything from me at all, right? Because who knows, you might come back later on. So as soon as I give them the spiel about the graphic novel, if let's say they decide to pick up the graphic novel, I'll tack on the second graphic novel for 20% off the cover price, so I can get them to buy both books together, right? And from there, that sale would be complete. I wouldn't try and tack on all the other single issues, right? You're either buying single issues or you're buying hardcover graphic novels. It's either one or the other, right? Now, if you say no to the graphic novel, you say like, no, I don't want Warrior and Defender graphic novel. That's totally cool. I'll quickly tell you about the single issues for Fallen Avenger, and I sell those for an additional $10. You can walk out, so you can leave them with 4, right? So that gets people. It's easy enough for people to understand. They can walk away and decide with what they want to pick up. Now, Marks is a little bit more of a challenge for me in terms of how to sell it, because I really don't have much experience selling it as of yet. I'm going to be learning this as I go on. And that's what happens. Anytime you showcase a new product, you're not going to learn how to sell it until you actually get out there and sell it. So I have it displayed here, and people are probably going to pick it up and want to look at it. And that's totally cool with me, because I'll be able to determine how many books I have out there. And in terms of T-shirts, I'm not really looking to sell people T-shirts. I'm in the comics game. I'm not in the game of selling T-shirts. but people see that I'm wearing the T-shirt. So if they ask me, hey, where can I get your T-shirt? I have, I have them right here. Now I'm printing them up in all sizes. So before I went from small to XL, double XL. Now I'm going up from small to 5X so that I can cover all bases, and anybody who wants to buy shirts from me can. At the low price of $15, right? So, and one thing I want to tell you guys that's really important is that nothing I'm telling you right now is the end-all be-all of how you have to do this, all right? I figured this out on my own through trial and error. It took me years to get to this point right here. It's going to take you years to get to this point. And what I do is going to be completely different from what you do. My whole thing is this. I feel like it's important for my comics to be valued at a price point where people feel like they're getting a deal when they're buying them, right? I think one of the things that's making it harder for people to get hooked on comics today is the price point. Comics used to be 35 cents, and now they've jumped up to $3 or more. Some comics are $5, and now you have all these variants where, people are charging like 20 or 30 or 40 bucks for them, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel like you can sell your product for $10 or that you should sell your product for $10, I'm not here to tell you should not do that. You have to determine the value that you can sell it at, and you have to feel confident. That's why it's so important to be ready for everything. If you can't, if this and this isn't working, you're not going to sell anybody. And that's just the bottom line. Your brain has to be working beforehand. You have to know your price points. You have to know your product. You have to be able to get out there and push it. You have to. All right. If you're going to sit back and wait for people to come to you, it's just not going to happen. I've seen it before. I've seen it 100 times. I have been thrown behind my table, and I've been, told that I can't sell in front of my table. And, I remember at first I got really discouraged by this, and I sat down and I was all upset. And I saw people walking by, and if people see that I'm upset, they're not going to be curious to stop and check out what I'm doing. If I have a bad attitude, no one's going to want to buy from me. So when that happened to me, I just realized I can sell just as well from behind my table as I can in front of my table. Now, why do I do it? Why do I get in front of my table? People think I do it because I'm trying to get more people towards me and less people towards them. No, that's not the reason at all why I'm in front of my table. I'm in front of my table so that I can shake your hand, so that I can make eye contact with you, so that I can hand you books. I'm also in front of my table for security reasons. I don't want people lifting shit from me. If they see that I'm in front of my table and that there's motion going on here, they're going to be less inclined to steal stuff from me. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be standing in front of their table now, because I think artists can't stand in front of their table. An artist has to be behind their table because they are drawing commissions. They have their portfolio displayed. They need to have people coming by and looking through their stuff. So if you're an artist, I'm not trying to tell you that you need to get out there and do what I do. You're playing a different game. And everybody, you'll realize that everybody's doing that. Some guys are in the print game. Some guys just sell prints. And what they do is they set up like 3 huge walls, and they have all their prints displayed up there. And some people get pissed about that too, because they're like, hey, this guy's blocking off my area. No, he's not. He's just trying to showcase his product. Nobody gives a shit about you at conventions. That's just the bottom line. And that's not something that you should look at and be like, oh, I'm all upset. No one gives a shit that I'm there. Look at that as an opportunity, guys. No one knows that I'm going to be at Planet Comicon next week. I didn't make any announcements. I didn't go on the site and ask them to put my name up there, right? I don't need that. I'd rather surprise you. I'd rather take you off guard and show you a product that's new, that's riveting, that's exciting, and get you to pick it up. All right? I don't need all the attention. It's better for me that if I see you at a convention, you don't know who the hell I am, and you're surprised, because then I know I got you. Even if you don't like the book, I got you. See my point? So basically, this is the mindset you need to have. You have to be mindful of everybody. I mean, again, I was talking about sales last week. People think that when you're working in sales, you're just trying to get money from people, right? They think, the idea of sales is take money from person A's pocket and put it in my own pocket. That's not what sales is about. If you're going to come in with that kind of attitude, it's just not going to work out. Like last week, my wife and I, we were looking at some homes, and the realtor that we met with, he started telling us about how he before telling us anything about the house or asking us any questions about us and what we're looking for, he talked about himself and how great he was as a realtor. Right? I don't give a shit. I don't fucking care what you sell fucking homes for a living. I'm here to buy a home. I don't care what you do for a job. All right? And the whole point he was trying to make was, and I get it, I just don't think the approach worked. And it may have worked for someone else, it just didn't work for me. But his approach was, I'm so good at what I'm doing that I only sell the best houses ever. Well, if I took that approach and said, I'm so good at selling that I only sell YI SOON SHIN because I worked on it, people are going to think I'm a fucking asshole. All right? I don't want people to feel like I'm an asshole. All right? Some people will still feel like I'm an asshole regardless of anything. But my whole point is I want people to feel like they're invited to my area. All right? You're supposed to come here to my table space, and you're supposed to feel comfortable. You're supposed to feel like, you can hang out and chat with Henri for, a couple of minutes. I'm not in the business of trying to take your money and kick you out of there. Now, if you're going to sit there and annoy me for the next hour, I'll find a strategic way without insulting you to get you to kind of move on, because I'm here to work, And there are some people who have a different view on that. Like I know there's some writers who are very passionate about interacting with their audience, and they'll sit behind their table, and when someone comes by to sign their books for them, they'll talk with them for 20 minutes. Why? Because conventions aren't where they make their money. They make their money from the books that they write. So they don't need to do what I'm doing, which is out there hustling. I don't have Diamond behind me. I don't have many retail support either. It is just me going out to every convention. And if you're in the independent game, you're probably doing the same thing. You're probably dealing with the same challenges I'm doing. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. You will figure it out as you go. The wrong way is only determined by you. If I go to the next convention and I don't sell any copies of Marx, well then I know I fucked up something. I know it's not going to be the case, but you have to think from there. How do I revitalize? How do I change things? And going back to what Colin was saying again, and we'll wrap this up as soon as I make this point. You have absolutely no fucking control at all of what happens at Comicon. In terms of where you're located and what can happen to you. Let me give you an example. Right? This just happened to me last August at a convention. So I had my setup, and what happened was a friend of mine who was showcasing his book wanted to go and do Wizard World Chicago, and he wanted to get his own table. And I said, hey man, why don't I get an end cap table and we'll split it. It'll save you money, and you can showcase your stuff, and I'll have my selling space because they give you two big tables. So it was like, cool. So he had his area, and I had my area. And I had my display just like this. And at some point, one of the convention show floor managers came up and said, I don't like this display here. You need to take it down. Well, I looked at him and I said, why? He said, it's against regulation. And I go, but no one said anything, and it's now like Saturday afternoon. It has to come down, man. And he was looking for a fight. He wanted me to start, arguing with him so that he could throw me out of the show, right? Because that's typically what happens when you get approached by people like that. They want to instill their authority over you. Now, here's the deal. I could have fought back with him, and I would have gotten kicked out of the show, and I would have lost money. What would that have gotten me? It would have gotten me butt kicks, all right? So here's what I did. I asked him, what can I do to make it work? If I move it forward, will it work? And he's like, no, you just got to take it down. You got to take it down. You got to take it down. So I said, fine, it's coming down. So I took it down. He comes back Sunday morning, and he walks right past me. Doesn't say anything because he thinks like we're on bad terms or something. Now I have to be careful about that. I don't want to be on bad terms with anybody. Now some people like to stick it to others. I have to think strategically. I'm going to do the show this year. And if I piss this guy off, he might keep me from getting a table. So I walked up to him and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, hey man, I did exactly what you asked. I took down my display. And he goes, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Thank you for understanding. And you know what? I haven't had a problem with him since. All right? Was he being an asshole to me? Absolutely. He was just being a jackass. He was just trying to, you know, show his authority over me. But I know that if I would have, you know, stuck it to him, and if I would have like really, you know, tried to show him who I was, I would have gotten thrown out of the show. And then what? You know, again, you have to think about what you have to pick your battles. And when I go to conventions, I'm not, and I say I'm going to battle, I'm not battling anybody when I go to conventions. I'm battling myself. I'm setting up my own challenges. My goal is to sell as many fucking books as I can when I get to conventions. Everything that I bring with me, I want to sell them all. I want to get rid of every goddamn book. I want to go home empty-handed. That's the battle I'm fighting. I'm not fighting with anybody else at conventions. I don't think that's worth my time. I'm here to make friends and make sales. That's it. All right, guys. Next week, I'm going to be preparing for Planet Comicon. I'll be packaging up books and showing you how I do it. So right now, I'm actually broadcasting from my factory, where not my factory. I don't have a factory. I have a warehouse where I store all my books. So I'm in that space right now, and I will give you guys a tour of it next week, and you can see how it all happens, how I package up books. It's not very entertaining, but I'll talk a little bit more about sales and, you know, kind of what I'm going through pre-convention, and it's all stuff that we all go through, and you know, how do I get myself into the right frame of mind in order to get out there and do my best. So thank you so much for tuning in. It looks like we got so many people that came in today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next week. Onward to victory.